Welcome to the very first episode of Helle Show. This is where I'll be mostly talking about the beauty of the dog. Dog aesthetics, design, architecture, art, dog captivating, films, books, and of course, music. As I'm the vocalist of IGNEA, metal is a huge part of my life and career, so I'll also be covering some metal scene, vocals, talking to fellow musicians and industry representatives. I don't know where this show is gonna lead me, but I invite you to take this journey together with me and explore it. As I'm quite a bookworm myself, I would like to kick off this show with 5 books that I highly recommend reading to metalheads and pretty much everyone who can find the beauty in the dog style and intellect. I guess I will kick off with heavy stuff, and the first book is Confessions of a Heretic, The Sacred and the Profane, Behemoth and Beyond by Adam Nergal Darski. I'm more than sure that you know who Mr. Nergal is. He's the vocalist of Behemoth. He's quite provocative person in the metal scene, but what I really like about him and about this book is that he's brutally honest in pretty much everything. I think that I've already read this book twice actually, because it's not fiction, it's basically a selection of interviews with him where he breaks down his thoughts on pretty much all topics imaginable. Within this book, you also learn how Behemoth appeared, what were like the first steps, like rehearsals and music. He talks about a lot of backstage moments, about being on the Polish TV, about how people perceive his beliefs, which can be found as antichrist by a lot of people. And I mean, this is how he also has gotten himself into quite a few scandals and even into the Polish court. In this book, he also tells about his fight with a horrible disease, leukemia, and I think that it can be absolutely encouraging to everybody how he handled it and how he continued with his career on stage, in the studio, in the metal scene. So I would like to read you a quote from this book where he talks about originality. The question was, so what about your originality generally? You often say that Behemoth has its own character. The answer: I'm like a sponge. I absorb everything that surrounds me. Music, film, conversation. When you squeeze a sponge, the water that squirts out of it is not the same as the water that was absorbed. You filter everything through your experience. Recognition, I'm all for that. Own character, that too. But it doesn't have to mean complete originality. I'd prefer to be secondary, but still honest. I really stand by this quote myself, and this is how we at IGNEA make a lot of things. At least like when I write lyrics, I get inspired by a lot of things surrounding me, music, movies, books, whatnot. And sometimes it really feels like I'm compiling things from other sources of information and inspiration. And again, what I'm saying is that he is very honest in this book, and this is what I particularly like. And of course, you will also find a lot of backstage moments and stories and things that you don't normally know when you just listen to music or watch videos by Behemoth. As she said in her own words, 50 lives in 50 years. And I'm talking about, of course, Sharon Osbourne. This is a very unexpected book for me to read because I actually haven't read any books about the late Ozzy Osbourne. And I think that right now this book is more relevant than ever because of Ozzy's passing and because the Osbourne family is again under the spotlight. I think this is a very inspirational book, and I think that by reading it, a lot of people will look at Sharon from another perspective because, of course, Sharon is a character not particularly liked in the rock and metal scene, let's face it, but I also think this is because a lot of people don't really know her life and what she went through in these 50 lives in 50 years, like she said in the quote. Because her life wasn't easy at all, even though like the first book that I mentioned is about an extreme metal vocalist and frontman, she has the extreme in the cover, in the title of this book, and I think it makes all the sense because her life was way all over the place. She is the daughter of a manager who was also not an easy man to be around, and she started being in this business as a music manager when women weren't really around, you know, and when it was really hard to be a woman in the rock and metal scene, especially on the management side. And of course, Ozzy was quite a rock star, had a very unpredictable behavior, rock and rollish behavior that all of you know about, and you can only imagine how she perceived it in her daily life, not only through their work together, but also through their personal life, because she was the wife of Ozzy. I also think that through this book you will not only learn her life, but also see the lives of other people in the rock scene through another perspective, through her eyes. Maybe you will change your attitude to this famous woman. Even though I'm a huge fan of physical books, sometimes it's not possible for me to get one because we live in Ukraine and it's not really easy to have everything shipped here in the first place, but also because I'm a frequent traveler and sometimes I just cannot bring, you know, all the heavy books with me. So that's why I have this small friend of mine. It's just an ordinary Kindle that I've been having for maybe 10 years now, and I really love it, especially when I need to have some quotes highlighted for me. It's very easily done here. I just need to highlight them and I can go back to my clippings, which I also use now when I'm writing lyrics for the next IGNEA album. Anyways, the next book that I would like to break down is the book about and from the CEO of the Metal Blade label, Brian Slagel. I've been reading this book quite a few years ago. It has made a huge impression on me because, again, I'm very interested in the music industry, not only from the perspective of the artist, but also about the music management and marketing and whatnot. And it's always interesting to get another, perspective. So the title of this book is actually For the Sake of Heaviness, and I believe that this reflects how Metal Blade label was built in the first place. It all started basically with one person, and through this book not only you can learn about how this label was being built, but also about how the music industry was developing, the metal music industry through years and ages, and how different it was actually from decade to decade. And this is why I would like to read a small quote from this book to reflect this thought. We kept making vinyl and kept selling it, but one day, I can't recall exactly when, I got a phone call from our distributor Green World. By the way, they told me, we've got a massive return coming back to you. I'll never forget the awful feeling I had when I heard that. The color drained from my face. It turned out all the stores had decided vinyl was over and that compact discs were the new thing. It felt like they all made that decision on the same day. And with that, the retail outlets were shipping huge quantities of vinyl back to the distributor. I guess this one quote says it all because we now see a huge revival of vinyl, and it's way bigger than the CDs were back then when this quote was taken. And this is why I highly recommend reading this book to see how it really was back in the days where not the artists were chasing the labels, but the labels were chasing the artists. I guess after the first 3 books, the next one is quite unexpected, but I would still like to talk about it. This is Kraftwerk, Future Music from Germany by Uwe Schütte. And this is one of the last books that I've read recently. I got it in Berlin in one of the bookstores. And by the number of bookmarks, you can say that this book inspired me a lot. I gotta say, I wasn't a huge fan of Kraftwerk before reading this book, but I really like a good story. And when I found out so many things and so many meanings behind this art project, because I cannot really name it a band or an artist, I was blown away, and I would really like more people to find out about the story. And I can tell you even more, after reading this book, I actually bought tickets to the Kraftwerk show, and I'm going there in December in Düsseldorf, in the city where it was born. To be honest, one of the founders of the band is sadly already dead. I'm really afraid that I'm not gonna be able to capture them while the project still lives. To reflect how much meaning and how much thoughtfulness is put into this project, I would like to read another quote. "The beat you hear in electrocardiogram is my heartbeat during cycling," Schütte said. "We took medical tests I did over a couple of years, heartbeat recordings, pulse frequencies, lung volume tests, and used those tests on the Tour de France album. It's percussive and dynamic. It is this authentic sound, recognizable as a heartbeat, yet sounding like a bass drum, that provides the rhythmic backbone of the track, running at a little over 60 BPM. What therefore we hear is, in a very literal sense, the heartbeat of the Kraftwerk man-machine, which in a brilliant conceptual feat dissolves the distinction between the rhythms of electronic music and cardiovascular activity. When the BPM rate drops to zero, both party and life are over. But the utopian idea is that the beat goes on forever." Or, to quote Schütte once more on the topic of cycling being a manifestation of the man-machine, it's about dynamics, always continuing straight ahead, forwards, no stopping. He who stops falls over. It's always forwards. And I guess I would like to wrap up this book by just another short quote that you can see just right at the back of this book. "We are not artists nor musicians. We are workers." I really encourage you to give this book a read. And I would like to wrap up this episode by talking about also an unexpected book. It's about and partially by Vivienne Westwood. Even though she's not a musician, she's not an artist, but I think everyone can agree that she is a huge influence on the style that metalheads and punks use in everyday life. And if it wasn't for her, a lot of attributes would be just non-existent. Sadly, I don't really have the book with me anymore. I mean the book with her autobiography, where she tells about her entire life, where she is being told about by Ian Kelly, who is the co-author of this book. And you can see her entire path and her beliefs and how her design and taste was developing. I believe that for everyone who likes the dark style, who is interested in dark fashion, but also those who would like to know the roots of their metal pins, high hairs and metal jackets, battle vests, whatnot, I think that you should really read this book and see where everything of it is coming from. And even though I don't really have that particular book, I have this one. This book was gifted to me by my former co-workers in the IT, when I was working in IT. It's a little bit beaten by the former dog of my parents, who sadly passed away a few years ago, so it's a reminder of him. This is actually a coffee table book with a lot of interviews, the outfits that she was doing. I mean, this format is amazing. Probably not for the YouTube video, because you won't really see me, but I love coffee table books, and if I could buy a Taschen library, I would gladly do it. Anyways, I really encourage you to read the autobiography, to look through The Runways by Vivienne Westwood, and if you live in London, then you most probably have already been to her flagship store. If not, do it. If you are not in London and you pay a visit, please do so, because you will see a lot of archive pieces and it looks really great. And to give you a little bit of the perspective of her mindset, I'm gonna read a quote. My work is rooted in English tailoring and in the past. When you look to the past, you start to see standards of excellence, the good taste on the way things are done and put together, formed. By trying to copy technique, you build your own technique. And I think that this quote is somehow aligned with the quote that I gave by Nergal from the first book of this sequence. I mean, I often try to find what people who I admire think about originality and sources of inspiration. To sum it up, Vivienne has put a lot of thought and provocation into the clothes that she was making. And by quoting her, you live a much better life if you wear impressive clothes. Check out this book. I think you will be very impressed. So those were 5 books that I recommend reading to you, but of course they're just the tip of the iceberg, and this is what just came to my head when I thought about the first episode of Helle Show. And of course I would like to recommend you even more books. So let me know if you have read any of those mentioned in this episode, what you think about them, what you would like to start reading after watching this episode. I would really like to hear your feedback, and let me know if you would like to hear some more book recommendations from me. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe not to miss the new episodes of Helle Show.